Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Realema's second virtual event. Today, we are commemorating Women's Day. As you know, 9th of August in South Africa is Women's Day. And we thought we would commemorate the day by us having a discussion about issues that women are faced with and basically their personal stories. In the same light, also helping our young women to also understand, be educated, be informed to ensure that in the future they make the right choices. So before we get into the discussion that we have planned for you today, we thought we should just remind everyone, just in case we have new viewers on our social platforms or on our YouTube channel, who the Realema Foundation is. So the Realema Foundation's main purpose is found in its name, Realema, which is a Sotho word that loosely translated means crop farming in Sesotho. Essentially, what we aim to do is do our part in nation building, and we plan to do so by sharing life experiences with the youth that will help to prepare them for the next phase in their life, irrespective of whether they want to start working immediately, they want to pursue a career path that maybe requires them to go to a tertiary institution or maybe a TVET college for technical skills, or whether they want to pursue an entrepreneurial ambition, right? So again, as we said, our main aim is to really empower the youth, help them to be informed, sort of arrange interventions if they require mentorship or guidance from someone that has experience. That's the role that we are looking to play. And essentially, in some cases, we have other people that are less fortunate than others, and they need resources like laptop, internet access to apply into tertiary institution. In some cases, even money to sort of do the initial registration. And those are the kind of interventions that we want to arrange. So for our viewers, if anyone wants to get involved or even assist, please feel free to contact us, and then we can see how we can collaborate with you. Okay, now to get started with our discussion today, we thought it's very fitting. We came across a quote by a lady called Jemini Kent, where she said, to everyone battling a difficulty or under attack right now, smile, keep your head up, keep moving, and stay positive. You will get through it, right? So obviously today we are leaning on that or reflecting on that quote by Gemini Kent in the context of women in our society. And before we get into the crux of our conversation, would like our panel today to please introduce themselves, starting with Letiwe.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and happy Women's Day to all the women out there that are watching. My name is Letiwe, and my surname is Marit, and I was born and bred in Tembisa, so I'm a Kasi girl. I'm also a mom to a very interesting and energetic young boy. I currently work as a cost estimator for a turnkey construction company. So yeah, maybe I'll get into more details what we do and all of that. Let me see, what else can I tell you about myself? So I'd like to believe that I'm an arts and culture activist because I'm obsessed about arts and culture. And Africa, I love my country, I love my continent. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Hey, thank you, Letiwe. And next on the panel, we have Bridget.
Hi everyone, I'm Bridget Mjali. I was born and raised in Tembisa. I grew up in Ivory Park. Most of my schooling was in Midrand, so I moved between Tembisa and Midrand. And even though they're like 10 k's away from each other, it was two different worlds. But that's a whole other conversation. I studied law at Wits. And now I'm working as a compliance officer in the retail cluster of in the financial industry. And yeah, that's basically me.
Thank you,
Also, I'm in
Bridget.
the foundation. If the shirt wasn't enough.
Most definitely, we can tell from the shirt. And next up, we have Valencia.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity today. I'm really excited to be a part of this session. So, I'm Valencia Karageorgiades. It's a Greek surname. I'm not Greek, and I'm Valencia, which is a Spanish word, but I'm not Spanish. So I come from a small town called Richards Bay. A lot of people call it Secunda by the Sea because it's just a beach town, but lots of industries. And I also studied, well, firstly in UCT, then it was quite challenging. So I moved to Durban to be closer to home. And then I studied BSc Computer Science, and now I'm working for an IT company called SAP. I started off as a graduate, and now I'm currently a technology architect with SAP, and I also lead the business consulting team for Africa. So looking forward to having a good dialogue today.
Thank you, Valencia. And next on the panel, we have Hanley.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy DeVos. I grew up in Joburg. I believe I'm a total Joburg girl. Love the place, love everything about it. So I grew up in the West Rand. I studied law, and then I became a teacher. So I was an accounting teacher for about 5 years and decided I needed a change. I firmly believe in make a change when you want to. So after that, I went into end user training, also SAP based, lots of SAP people. And from there went into consulting, project management, and I was a SAP consultant for about 12 years and recently made a change to move out of consulting, and I'm now the head of IT enablement at also a non-profit organization called Harambee. So my path is quite a zigzag, but I think it's good because it gives you lots of experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then on the gents side, first up we have Tshego. Tshego, please introduce yourself.
Morning, everyone. My name is Moganetsi. Born in Tembisa, lived and grew up in Mabopane, and then moved to study and go to school in Rustenburg. My background is in internal audit and financial management. That's what I studied. And my first job was in the finance space, and ultimately became a finance manager in one of the financial institutes. But I've, like Hanley, I've also zigzagged a bit, moved from financial accounting, financial management to business management, and from business management to business intelligence, which is IT type of skill. Still learning and appreciating its complexity, but its rewards as well. I would like to say I've also worked as a SEP consultant, but no, I've only consumed SEP. So what I know about SEP is very dangerous. Lastly, I'm one of the directors of Realema, and wishing all the women a happy Women's Month and a happy Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Tshego. Lastly, I will introduce myself before we move on. So from my perspective, I'm the firstborn of three brothers, first one in my family to go to university, right? My original roots, my parents are both from Lesotho. Grew up between Free State and Mpumalanga, and a lot of traveling to Lesotho, and ended up in Gauteng. I studied software development at the University of Johannesburg. I'd like to believe that I'm firstly a philanthropist and a leader in religious, social, and corporate South Africa. And I think what really brought us to these kind of conversations that we are having today is that, and I think it goes for everyone on the panel today, is that we've been fortunate enough to experience both sides of the South African coin, right? South Africa is really as diverse as we are culturally, but economically, there's also very two sides of the coin. And sometimes it's not always easy for some people to understand other people's challenges. And I think that's why we founded Realema. So I'm one of the original founding members of Realema. And really, we wanted to make sure that we are those people that bridge some of these gaps that exist in our society and pave and cover new path for the youth to make sure that the journey is a bit easier for them. And at the end of the day, the more the youth, what the youth can achieve, and the more guided, the more mentored they are, the more they will achieve. And at the end of the day, South Africa as a whole will benefit, right? So yeah, that's really it. And to start our conversation today, I thought of a Sotho proverb, right? That says "Mangwana o tshwara thipa ka bohaleng," right? Which, when loosely translated, means a child's mother is will always be willing to hold the knife at the sharp end, right? And I think it really, not just talking about mothers with children, but for women, it really says how much women are willing to sacrifice for either a sibling, someone in their community, to try and help those people to progress in life and to achieve a bit more. So our conversation today is focused on women as we are commemorating Women's Day. So to get the conversation going, we'd really like to ask the ladies on the panel to say, what does Women's Day mean to you? And as we reflect on Women's Day, please share your personal experiences that had led you to where you are today. And what experiences do you think the youth can learn from that they can apply in their lives to sort of progress a bit more and a lot quicker?
So, with regards to what Women's Day means to me personally, it's it's a reminder of what all those women fought for in 1956. You know how women from various and different backgrounds got together and said, you know what, today we're going to fight for this. We're going to fight for our rights. We're going to fight for equality. So it constantly reminds me that women are hardcore. Women are women are forces, and we have that inside of us. Each and every single woman has got that fighting. Women have a fighting spirit that you cannot even understand or comprehend. Women go through so many challenges. I mean, I'm not going to go too deep into that, but we face so much and we carry it well. You know, women are single mothers. Women are, there are so many facets to being a woman. But what Women's Day basically reminds me of, or what I take from Women's Day, is that we are powerful and we must never, ever, ever forget that. Yeah, that's that's what Women's Day is.
I think
Okay.
that's interesting, Letiwa, and I'd like to add to that. I think, like you mentioned, it's a celebration of women, and I think women are so selfless. You know, they're constantly either taking care of their families, they're working, taking care of people around them. That it's almost as if we needed a day just to stop and say thank you to ourselves as well, just to remember that, hey, hang on, just take a breather and acknowledge all of the things that we've done. So I think for me specifically, that's what Women's Day is about. Just to stop, take time to appreciate yourself as a woman. Just have a gratitude journal. Sometimes write down everything that you're grateful for as a woman, that in your capacity you were able to do, and then be appreciative of the other women that played an important role in your life. So for me specifically, it's like an appreciation day for yourself and for the women around you. And sometimes women is like, in my case, my mom was the one working most of the time, and my dad was the one that had to come home and cook. So on Women's Day, we actually also wish him a happy Women's Day as well, because he played that motherly role for us. So I think that's what it is, you know, appreciating the people that's given you that sort of motherly love and motherly comfort during the times that you go through.
Oh, that's lovely. Hanley, Bridget?
Yeah, I would like to say that I also think it's great that there's a spotlight on women. You know, even statistically, they prove that women don't believe in ourselves as much as men do. You know, men will apply for a job when they can't really do it, but women don't do it because we don't always allow ourselves to believe in our potential. And I think if there's one thing for me that Women's Day highlights is really to put a spotlight on what women are capable of if they put their minds to it. If you think of that march, that is exactly an example of women deciding we are making a change, and they did it. And I think also that again, they prove where women get part of the economy, where women accept how great they are, you can see a change in the bones of a country. So I think that's what Women's Day is for me, to remind us of that. And for a young woman to realize their potential and take that up and not be scared of that. Because I think as women, that's what we do. We sometimes shy away from how great we can be. And that is what's important for me on Women's Day.
Wow.
I think
Yeah.
everyone has highlighted beautiful things regarding Women's Day and what the day means and what it is exactly that we celebrate. And I think to add to that, it stands out for me because it's Women's Day. It looks at the one thing that is common amongst women, which is being women, you know. And I think regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of all the nuances that exist, we can relate on that level. And you know, it shows other women that yes, there's differences. Yes, we don't agree on everything, but there's still that common thing of being a woman, and we can relate on that level. And I really appreciate how we're able to celebrate women taking a stand. And I think for a young woman, they understand that in every, it doesn't always have to be a big stand, but I think it helps them understand that women have the power, and to Let's point, we are a force. And even in the smallest spaces, we are able to step up, you know, and speak up, you know, and stick together, you know. And I think that's the main thing for me, is sticking together and realizing how in our sticking together, so much more was done. You know, there was a bigger move, you know, there was a bigger force because we stuck together. And I think that's why that's what stands out for me with Women's Day.
Wow. I think that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing, ladies. And I think really to educate and to inform other men like Tshepo and myself. I think sometimes maybe we think we understand, but we don't really understand, right? I think from what you guys sort of related, you talk about the selflessness, the working hard, the minding of the children, etc. And essentially, I know there's a lot of conversation that are going around about maybe financial equality in the corporate world, and sometimes to say women put in just as much effort, if not more, but earn a lesser salary, right? What are some of the challenges that you guys have experienced in your personal journeys that maybe we as men are not conscious of, and we need to be a bit more conscientized?
Okay, I'll go ahead. So I'm in a very male-dominated industry. I'm in construction. So this is like every day, every single day, all day, 24/7. Um, it's it's very difficult because I honestly feel that we could be on the same page, you know, mentally, even capacity wise, we could be on the same page. But I honestly feel that the men will get first preference. You know, if I will only be called up if maybe the man can't do it, or I'll be the last resort. And I feel that that's the case because I'm a woman. And it's not just me personally, but it's an industry thing because it's women everywhere that are in this particular industry. I honestly, I don't know why that is. I don't know what it is. Maybe men still think that women belong in the kitchen. I don't know what it is, but I really feel that we should be given equal opportunities because give me an opportunity to show you what my capacity is. You know, when I need it, let me show up.
I agree with you. I think a lot of women face what you're facing. And the problem is, and that is true for all of us, the way you grow up, the systematic mindset of how you grow up, and sometimes that gender roles in our households. And a lot of South African cultures, you know, women are subservient, are mothers, maybe. I don't know, or years ago, which that takes time to change, right? My dad also cooked Valencia, so I also grew up in a house where the roles were split, but my dad was still the head of the household. And I think for men coming into work, if we can give you guys some advice, is remember that that is not the case at work. At work, we are all equal. And as women, we also need to call that out. I feel like I'm over 40 now, so, you know, I think I care less. But when I was younger, I definitely was shy to say, actually, that's not okay with me. The way that you are speaking to me, you know, is not okay with me. And I think young women, we shouldn't be scared to say something. And then we can, because sometimes people are also not aware. Maybe, you know, the guys are not aware that they are excluding you, and not doing it consciously. So we need to call things out and make men aware of what is happening. So
Yeah,
it
definitely,
sometimes
Helen.
might be scary and not successful, but it is a good way to start.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you just touched on our backgrounds and certain gender roles, and I think for me that's where it starts for me, because I think the challenges really started in my home, where I'm an only girl. I have four brothers, so you can imagine already I'm outvoted on everything. And that was my reality for the longest time. So I think my challenges started their way. I would often question, no, what, but why can't I do that? And it was always the same thing. It was as though naturally things were assigned to men that immediately they assumed or had decided that women can't do. So I think for me it was always questioning, okay, but why can't I do that? How come my brother can do that? How come you let him do this, but you don't let me do this, you know? And I think for me it started, it was in my home, so it was in my immediate environment. Then obviously I'd also noticed those things outside of my home. So in my community as well, I'd noticed those imbalances, those often things that I felt were unfair or really weren't weren't accommodating for our differences, but instead relied on our differences to exclude us from certain things. So it was at home, it was community. Then you get to varsity, you still see those differences, and then the workplace, which is a whole other thing, because again you find yourself on a default where immediately if something is said by a man, it somehow automatically makes sense. But as a woman, it's as though you need to justify, you need to explain yourself, you need to prove yourself. It feels like you have to do so much more just to be noticed, just to be taken seriously, you know. So I agree that our backgrounds, and that's why honestly, and I'm not justifying certain behavior, but I think because a lot of how we're raised defines how we see life. You know, our outlook on life is defined by that. If you have a guy growing up in a household where they believe this is my role and this is my sister's role, that's how they go throughout life, and they can't help sometimes treat women differently because of that's how it's been defined in their homes, you know. And not everything is taught or spoken, but even as a child, you see it. You see your mother doing one thing and your father doing something else, and it's always been that way. So in your mind, the man works, he brings back the bacon, and your mom stays home and he takes care of you. And in my case, I've never seen my father cook, so so that's been my reality. But yeah, I think our backgrounds really define a lot of things for us. But for men and us, for me, is to try and be more open-minded and to challenge yourselves, right? Find and because a lot of it will be like a knee-jerk reaction because that's how it's been your entire life, but try and question a lot of your own views on women and the differences and different roles. You know, sometimes ask yourself, why do I think I should do this? You know, so I think that encounter with yourself would be a big step for men beginning to understand how to relate better with us.
Oh, thank you, Bridget. Tshego, I've noted your hand. I just think I should give Valencia a chance to really maybe add her views, and then we'll move on to you.
Sorry, Tseko. We are equal though, okay? I think from my perspective, it's been a little bit different. And I think it's exactly to your point, Bridget, it's all depends on how you grew up. So in my household, I had a very strong-headed mother. I think, we know the history of South Africa, and she was one of those people that always questioned, why do I have to wear a different color uniform? Why couldn't I apply for a certain job? But she did. She went for it in any case. So I think in my case, when I walk into a room, so my field is also quite male dominated on the technical side. But when I walk into a room, I don't see a male or a woman. I see other technical architects. And I think you have to believe that as well. When you walk into a room, you're not walking in as a woman, you're not walking in as a man. You're walking in with your title, whether you're a technology architect, an engineer, an accountant. When you walk in with that mindset, you completely forget who's in the room and you discuss it on the same level. So all of a sudden you're all equal. You're all accountants. You're all engineers. So for me, I think that mindset helped quite a lot. When I walked into a room, I didn't feel that insecurity. I'm a woman and they're a man. I felt that I knew just as much because we all studied the same thing. We all experienced the same thing. And it all boiled down to knowledge. So I think if I could give the youngsters any advice, one of the differentiating factors, at least for me, as cliched and as cheesy as it sounds, but knowledge is power. The more you get to learn, whether it's reading a book, whether it's watching the news, whether it's listening to other people. And Felix would know this. I learned so much from him and his team. And that's how I got my knowledge. And that's how I can walk into a room now and speak a little bit about the topic that he knows well. So I think empower yourself by that, forget about the gender sometimes, but so that we maybe as women we treat men differently as well, but when you put on that role of what you're supposed to be, then you level the playing field. If there is one side of a man that I say does affect me in the office space, I feel as if sometimes a man will speak to a woman like he's standing in a coffee shop or a restaurant and trying to chat her up. And I think sometimes they fall into that habit unknowingly.
Yeah.
So the woman then becomes an object, and I think that's like sometimes a caveman instinct that's still with a lot of men sometimes.
Mm.
So that's why sometimes when you're speaking to a woman, for all the young men, just remember that they're not your girlfriend yet. So you're still in the office, until you're out of that workspace in a more personal space, you have to always keep it professional and respectful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Val. Tshego?
Wow. It's difficult to speak after such yeah, amazing points. So I think just to maybe highlight something, and I think Letue started that discussion around speaking up and saying something, because evolved as some of us think we are, but let's say myself and Felix, but we also still carry some caveman mindset type of things, and sometimes it is a blind spot that we don't often question or self-introspect on, because we do it either unconsciously or it's on autopilot based on the various factors that have been said. So I think just as an example, in one of our Realema meetings, Letue raised something very critical that myself, Felix, and other gentlemen in the Realema were not aware of, that we tend to dominate, as the space, and like I said, we take ourselves as evolved, right? But we did not understand, because we've got this brotherhood thing that we've created. Now, when we get into meetings, right, that brotherhood translates into discussion points. You tend to dominate, and slowly but surely you start seeing a bit of disengagement from our colleagues who are a different gender, because we dominate in that. And I think for her to say to all of us and say, hey guys, guess what? This is what the issue is, this is what the impact is, and this is what we expect from you. We started also looking at it and started thinking about it and say, okay, fine, what do we need to do, as evolved as we are, to continuously ensure that we don't perpetuate the same patriarchy stereotypes? And I think it's something that sits on us as men. It's not an issue that women need to continuously raise, that we need to self-introspect. And I like what you said, Valencia, as well, around the professionalism. You know, there's words that we tend to use without really understanding the broader impact, you know, like just a pretty face and all of those type of things in the workspace. They perpetuating the very same things that we trying to eradicate. So I think it's very interesting conversation. So I'll just take a step back and then listen some more.
Thank you, Tshego. Bridget, it looks like you have a burning point.
Yes, I think something that Tshego said to me just stood out. He referenced brotherhood, and it also took me back to something that Valencia said, that maybe we as women also treat men differently, and I think maybe obviously we don't do it naturally, but sometimes, and for us as well, it's a struggle between you want to be taken seriously, but you also don't want to come across aggressive or whatever the case may be. So I think sometimes the natural thing is to immediately shrink without realizing it, to immediately shrink. And I think in a group setting where men have this brotherhood thing going on, where they recognize each other and that's the level on which they speak, we on the other hand shrink, right? Instead of having a sisterhood, right? And sometimes it doesn't happen because you might be the only woman in the room, but I think maybe that's something we can take and adapt for ourselves, to say, now when there's women in the room, how do we recognize each other, right? To have the same presence. Because I think what he said stood out for me, because I think sometimes as women, we want to stand out so badly that we end up on the extreme, and we seem aggressive, and often that's how we'll be portrayed, as someone who's aggressive, someone who's trying too hard, but they already on a default where they recognize each other, and maybe we as women need to recognize each other in those group settings, so that I don't really care whether Tshego recognized my point or not, but other women recognized me and they didn't shrink when a man started speaking. So that just stood out for
I
me.
love that. That's beautiful. That is amazing. That's cool.
Wow, wow. Thank you very much, ladies. And I think for me, just I see you, Letiwe. I just want to reflect on a few points that I think everyone mentioned that are quite critical, right? Number one, I think what you spoke about is leading back from what Valencia said, is knowledge is power, right? It is very important that for you, and I think it's also for men, at least for me, it's the same thing. I found my voice in the corporate world the more I was comfortable in my knowledge area, right? And for you as a lady, it is very important for you to be knowledgeable, because when you have knowledge, and maybe if you are the best at what you do, then you're second to none. Then absolutely automatically that gives you an elevated voice in the room and you get heard. So do not allow yourself to play second best to anyone. Strive to be the best. That already sort of gives you that elevated voice. The second one, which I also agree, is actually a blind spot. And I think maybe we as men, speaking about you and I, Tshego, we need to call it out when we see it. I think there's still a lot of gentlemen in the corporate world the chatting up of women in a corporate world. It is inappropriate. And we should call it out as their brothers to say, brother, that is not acceptable. If you like her that much, leave it until you are in a private, environment. And if she doesn't appreciate the comments and the chatting up, then you can deal with it there. But in any work environment, please stop it. And I think that's where, Tshego, you and I need to conscientize our brothers as well, to say, when we see this kind of behavior, let's call it out to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen. And Bridget, I really loved what you said. Because as much as you may think that it's only a female thing, but I think it also happens in many different settings, right? That when you're a bit uncomfortable, you shrink instead of really raising your voice. And I think that's one of those skills that people need to develop over time, to say, speak up, speak your mind, Obviously, there is a proper way of raising your opinion or your point across, but it is very important for us to educate the other person sitting on the other side of the table, because if you don't do it, then the behavior just carries on.
Yeah.
Letiwe, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Bridget was saying about the sisterhood that females should start. I wanted to say add on to that by saying that I feel like we don't have enough mentors as women. We don't have enough women mentoring younger upcoming females. I feel that is a serious problem, especially in my industry. I'm going to speak about my industry more because that's where I have experience. That's how I have grown and stuff like that. So most of the time when I'm looking for somebody to guide me or something like that, it's men, which kind of becomes a bit of a problem as well because there's that level of being uncomfortable and things like that. I really feel that I don't know if we don't have enough women at top level at this point, or the people, the women that are at that top level, not really coming out and wanting to help upcoming people. And then what you just said now about guys calling each other out, I'm going to touch on something that's very controversial, which is gender-based violence. I feel that men should call each other out there as well. If you know that your friend is not doing something right, not even your friend, if you're aware of somebody doing something, say something to the person. There's a lot of protests and things that are happening. Men will go, or there was recently a protest at the union buildings. I think it was a month ago. It okay, yes, it's impactful, but if you're not speaking to the guy that's doing something wrong, how is that going to help? I feel that men should sit each other down and tell him, my guy, don't do what you're doing. It's wrong. We're not
Yeah.
saying get into the guy's business, but if you know they're doing something wrong, let them know. I feel that men don't talk enough about those type of things.
Yeah. I
Yes.
want to call out that and unfortunately, it's not just calling each other out. It's the WhatsApp groups. It's the messages that men share that they say is just in the guys group that are actually speaking to objectifying women. And unfortunately, and it's sad for me, but I do not know one woman who has never been sexually harassed. I in even in a light way, and just a comment at work that is totally inappropriate.
Yeah,
It all stems from there because the more you allow, the more it grows into gender-based violence, which is so much bigger. So, I think as women in South Africa, that for us, it is totally at the forefront of our minds because nobody wants to be scared to get a taxi or go to the mall. Nobody wants to live that way. And I think it's important that we raise it more and more. But also to your point about female mentors, I think that is so important. But in a lot of industries, it's also important to find men that are evolved, if you want to use your guys' word. But I must say that in my career, I've found guys that actually looked out for me and gave advice. And like you were saying, Bridget, don't come across so aggressive, but just maybe put your point in this way from their perspective. And so also for young ladies, search for men in your industry that are, more sensitive to what you are going through. They are there. There are great mentors out there, men and female. But I do agree with you. We need to, as we all need to mentor. And Valencia mentioned people that helped her in her career. I always think back on a few people that gave me a chance and hope that I can give somebody else a chance as well. Pay it back if you can. I think as young women, we need, or as women, we need to definitely do that. I really like that point.
Wow. Thank you, everyone. I think in the interest of time, I really, really wish we had more time. We need to kind of start summarizing. And I think in the last few points, what really is coming across stronger is that as we try and find solutions and try to improve based on the history and what we have experienced, let us try not to create further divisions, but our solutions need to, foster unity as well. And I love the fact, Anli, that you say that, I have found, men that are actually willing to help and provide the guidance, so let's not in the process alienate those men, because they're already doing the right things, right? And I think it's where our youth also needs to be conscious as they move forward. I've always, and fortunately, I haven't experienced it. I don't know whether it's really a good or a bad thing, but I feel social skills are important for women and men to grow up in an environment where they interact with each other, so that they can learn to respect each other at a very young age. So I'm not really criticizing like girls only or men's only schools, but I feel like the sooner we start interacting with each other and learn that this is how we behave towards each other correctly, and behave and create a brother and sisterhood at a younger age, then it will also come through in the boardrooms, etc. So I don't know, what else do you think in summary are key skills that the young people need to be conscious of, that they need to develop, so that they don't also face the challenges that we face?
I like what you said. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I like what you said about having social skills, and I think having EQ. You need to be emotionally intelligent, because that helps you deal with various different people, which is what you're going to encounter as an adult. You're going to encounter a lot of different people with different personalities. So you need to be prepared for that. And I basically like everything that was said. Learn, 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 learn as much as you can from everywhere and anywhere. Empower your mind, and you will be a force. Mm. That's it.
Thanks, Letiwe. Bridget, you wanted to say?
Yes, I agree with Letua. I think the common theme that has stood out in our conversation is empowering yourself with knowledge. Um, I think that that's very, very, very important. And I think also just as individuals in whatever space we're in, I think we must, as much as we've highlighted a lot of differences and a lot of nuances and whatever the case may be, is we should fight the urge to respond from a space of I'm a man, I'm a woman, but treat each other with common decency. You're dealing with a human. So if you understand that you need to respect everyone, not respect someone because, but simply respect people, I think that'll be fundamental, even in our social skills, because you'll learn how to interact with people. Because I think immediately when we box people in our minds, we will always react from that space, which is why if you formed an idea of this is what a woman is, regardless of what space you find yourself in, you will always treat a woman in that way. But if we understand that this is how you're supposed to treat people, you respect people, you speak to people in a certain manner, you relate to people in this way, I think that'll be fundamental in us treating each other better, understanding each other better. And I think just navigating whatever space we're in, because everywhere we are, we want to learn, but it's very difficult to even teach someone if you guys can't relate on that level of, common decency. So I think that's one thing that young people can take away. So learn, respect people, treat each other with common decency. I can't stress that enough. That alone can set the tone for the type of relationship that you could have with someone that could become your mentor. So if you're already difficult to relate with, it might create certain challenges for you. So yeah.
Wow, thank you. Tshego, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think for me, a lot has been said, and I think there's quite a lot of learnings that one takes out of this conversation. I think I agree with the knowledge is power, and I think it's one of the reasons why we have organizations like Realema, and Handi, you'll correct me, it's part of the reasons why we've got organizations like Harambe, so that we can provide that platform where a structured learning can take place. Because I'm an introvert by personality, but I had to learn to be an extrovert, because some of the things that you need to achieve in life requires you to get out of your comfort zone a bit, so having to transition from how you see things to something else. I think if you look at people that are celebrated all over the place, you find that at some point in time they had to transition from something, either from a behavior, from a character, or something like that. So I think it's quite important, especially for the Realema audience and the beneficiaries that we work with. Challenges are always going to be there. Organizations like Realema are there to help remove some of the barriers. But even with Realema, there's still going to be barriers that at an individual level you will have to push through so that you can achieve what you need. I think the biggest challenge we have in the country, and it's going to lead to something else, it's not the corruption or the whatever that's happening. It's when good people do nothing. I think that's where the biggest challenge is. So I think in a nutshell, the same applies with the women-related issues. It's when we sit down and we don't do anything, and then we become armchair critics. That's
Thanks, Tshepo. And Valencia will give you the last word before we wrap up. Any final words from your side?
Yeah, Seko just mentioned one of my favorite sayings, when good people sit and do nothing. And that is why, like Arambi and your foundation, you guys are doing something. You're changing the world. There's an African proverb that says, if you think you're small and insignificant, try being bitten by a mosquito, a tiny mosquito. You're itchy for days. It hurts like crazy, but it's such a small creature. So I think that's my message to the young people. If you think you're small and insignificant, you're not. Everybody on this panel today has spoken about knowledge, and only you can do the reading. Only you can take yourself and put yourself out there. So don't wait for someone to make sure your dreams come true. Don't wait for your manager to help you in your career. Don't wait for your teacher or your family. You're the only one that can create your destiny. And I think from my side, when you do that, don't forget the people around you. Don't forget to take the people around you, exactly like what your organizations are doing, because you never know where you will take these people. One day you might be in a position where you will need their help. You might need the help from construction as well. You might need the SAP help. You don't know where their lives will take them. So make sure when you're growing yourself, you're also growing others. And maybe the first step is to give back to your own community once you become successful. And I know that all these young people watching this video will become successful because you're making a point to watch the video in any case in the first place, which means you're interested and you want to succeed. So when you take that mind and when you will succeed, don't forget to take your community with you.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We really value your input and all the comments that you've shared with our viewers. We hope they have learned a lot, and we really look forward to having other discussions and conversations that will help to build them in the future. This brings us to the conclusion for today's discussion, and yeah, we look forward to further discussions in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.